The village of Seoul stood at the foot of a mountain range. Small, quiet, one of those places where everyone knows everyone and news manages to make its way around every yard before noon. Choi Inu had lived here his whole life. 30 years, the last 3 of them married. A simple man. Not a hunter, not a practitioner, not an awakened one. He worked at the mill, kept a small garden, fixed neighbors' fences for a modest fee. His hands were good. He could do anything that required patience and precision. His wife's name was So Rai. Beautiful, the village never tired of repeating. Too beautiful for Miller Inu, some said. Others kept quiet but thought the same. So Ri had married him 3 years ago, not out of love. Out of calculation that hadn't worked out, Pak Jun, whom she had wanted to marry, suddenly left for the city and found another woman there. So Ri was left at 23, beautiful, bitter, with resentment. Inu proposed at the right moment. She agreed not because she wanted him, but because someone had to agree. Inu knew this, not immediately, gradually. He understood it over the first year, was convinced of it over the second. Over the third, he discovered the poison. It began with a smell. Inu was a man with a good nose. Not a special one, just an attentive one. Many years at the mill, grain, flour, the dampness of stone, had taught him to distinguish subtle smells before most people noticed that something had changed. The soup smelled different. Not spoiled, different. Barely perceptible. Something faintly bitter at the bottom of the smell, beneath the onion and greens. As though someone had added a pinch of something to the pot that shouldn't have been there. The first time, he decided it had seemed that way. The second, he thought. So Ri had added a new herb. He didn't ask. The third, he pushed the bowl aside, waited until his wife went into the other room, poured it into the ground beneath the porch. The next morning, the grass under the porch had turned yellow and curled up. Inu stood and looked at the yellow stems. He thought for a long time. Then went to the mill, worked all day, came back in the evening, sat down at the table, ate the soup. Not because there was no other way out. There was. He could have left. He could have asked directly. He could have done many things. But Inu was a man who thought before he acted. And what he thought was this. So Ri is a coward. Poison is the cowardice of a person who fears a direct conversation. That means she needs time. And he needs time to understand what to do next. He ate. And that same night, for the first time, he doubled over in pain. The pain was such that he bit the corner of his pillow so as not to cry out. So Ri was sleeping beside him, or pretending to sleep. Inu lay there and endured the pain in silence. His stomach burned from within. Blood pounded in his ears too loudly. His hands trembled. By dawn it had passed. He got up, washed his face, went to the mill. And so it began. 2 years. Every day. Soup or porridge or stewed vegetables. And in each one, that faintly bitter note that Inu had learned to recognize instantly. So Ri cooked diligently. She smiled at the table, asked how things were at the mill, gave him second helpings. Inu ate and answered her questions. At night, he suffered. The first 6 months, every night. Pain that left no marks on the outside, but burned something away from within. Inu had memorized every crack in the ceiling of his room. He stared at them in the dark while the pain passed through his body in waves. Then things began to change. The pain didn't disappear, but it lessened. By the end of the first year, it was bearable. By the middle of the second, it was almost familiar. Like calluses on the hands. At first it hurts, then the skin toughens. Something inside him had adapted. He didn't know what exactly. He was not a scholar or a healer. He simply felt that the body was accepting the poison, processing it, incorporating it into itself like a foreign material that had become part of the structure. One day he cut his finger at the mill. The blood was strange. Darker than usual. Thick, slightly more than it should be. And the smell. Barely perceptible. That same faint bitterness he knew from the soup. Inu looked at the drop of blood on his thumb. Then he accidentally touched a mouse with that finger, one that had run out from behind the flour sacks. The mouse took 2 steps, fell. did not move. Inu looked at it for a long time, then put his hand aside, bandaged it, went back to work. He thought all day. The gates opened on a Monday morning. Choi Inu was walking to the mill when he heard a sound, low, vibrating, the kind that made your teeth respond. He turned around. On the northern edge of the village, something tore open in the air. Not an explosion, a rupture, as though someone had taken the fabric of reality and pulled it in two directions. A dark slit was widening. Slowly, with that same low humming, Inu stood and watched. The village woke up. Screams, slamming doors, children being dragged inside. Gates. Inu had heard of them. Everyone had. Rifts between worlds from which monsters emerge. In large cities, there is the Hunters Association that closes them. In small villages, they are usually low rank, with weak monsters that local hunters can handle. The gates on the northern edge of the village of Seoul did not look like low rank. Too large. The darkness behind them dense, opaque. And the sound coming from them was not the quiet creak of a low rank. A roar. Deep, guttural. Several creatures at once. Inu put his tools in his bag, went to the mill. Work doesn't get cancelled. The hunters arrived 2 hours later. A small squad, 7 people from the nearest city, ranks C and D, judging by the look of their armor and weapons. Ordinary hunters for ordinary gates. Inu watched them from the mill window. Too few for gates like those, he thought. Not with the knowledge of a specialist, with the intuition of a man who had learned to assess the mismatch between a task and a tool. He turned out to be right. The fight lasted 20 minutes. 3 monsters came through the gates. Inu didn't know their classification. He only knew that they were large, each one nearly 3 meters tall, with shells that deflected the hunter's blows the way a shield deflects rain. The hunters worked with skill, with coordinated technique, but the weapons couldn't pierce the shell. The first hunter fell at 8 minutes, the second at 12. The rest fell back to the perimeter of the village. They didn't flee. They held the line. But holding the line against 3 monsters that take no damage with 5 people isn't possible for long. Inu stepped out of the mill. Not because he had made a heroic decision, simply because the mill stood near the northern edge, and one of the monsters was moving in its direction. There was nowhere to go. Behind him was his house. And, in the house, So-ri. The monster saw him, turned. Inu stood and watched as 3 meters of armored creature moved directly toward him. He managed to think calmly. The monster struck with its paw from the side. A glancing blow. The claw passed along his left forearm, a cut of about 10 centimeters. Not deep, painful. Blood, dark, slightly thicker than usual. It splattered onto the monster's muzzle, onto its nostrils, onto whatever served as its sensory organs. The monster stopped. Several seconds, nothing. Then it fell. It simply fell. No agony, no cry, like a puppet from which the string had been pulled. 3 meters of armored creature collapsed to the ground and did not move. Inu looked at it, at his hand, at the blood still dripping from the cut. He thought calmly, methodically. So that's how it is. The 2 remaining monsters caught the scent. Both turned toward him. Froze. Inu understood what had happened from their movement. Or from its absence. They weren't attacking. They stood there, their nostrils working, taking it in. They were afraid. The hunters at the perimeter watched, not understanding what was happening. Inu took a step forward. Both monsters stepped back. Another step. They retreated further. Inu walked toward them slowly, his left arm raised, blood dripping from it. Not aggressively. He simply walked. The monsters backed away, faster and faster, then turned around and went back through the gates. The gates closed. The village was silent. The hunters were silent. Inu lowered his arm, looked at the cut. "What was that?" someone said. Inu didn't answer, because at that moment he heard a scream. The scream came from the direction of the house, a woman's, So-ri, and a man's, unfamiliar, though not entirely. Inu had heard that voice a few times when walking past the tavern. Pak Jun. He had returned from the city 3 months ago, without that other woman, with money and the air of a man to whom everyone owes something. So Ri had started going out in the evenings. Said she was visiting a friend. Came back late. Inu never asked. Now both of them were screaming from the direction of the house. Inu went. He found them in the backyard. A fourth monster, there had been 4 of them it turned out, and the last one had come through a different part of the gates, had cornered both of them between the fence and the shed. Smaller than the first 3, but enough for 2 unarmed civilians. So Ri sat on the ground. Pak Jun stood in front of her, shielding her. Credit where it's due, though he clearly didn't know what to do. The monster looked at them. It wasn't in a hurry. Inu entered the backyard. The monster sensed him, turned sharply, froze. The same reaction as with the 2 before. The smell of blood stopped it in its tracks. It retreated. Inu walked forward. The monster backed toward the fence, found no way out, lurched to the side, and disappeared around the corner of the shed. It did not return. Silence. So Ri looked at her husband from the ground, her face pale, dusty, with that mixture of relief and shame that is hard to conceal. Pak Jun looked at Inu, said nothing. Inu stopped 3 steps from them. He looked at his wife. 2 years. Every day, bitter soup. Every night, pain in the dark. Every morning, off to the mill as if nothing had happened. 2 years he had given her time. Time was up. Inu, said So-ri quietly. Her voice trembled. Inu, I don't, he said. He raised his left hand. The cut was still bleeding slowly, dark drops. For 2 years you put poison in my food, he said evenly, not loudly, not with rage. He simply stated facts. Every day. You thought I didn't notice? So Ri didn't answer. She was looking at his hand. I noticed, said Inu. I ate anyway. Why? Pa Jun exhaled. Not clever. It slipped out on its own. Because I was waiting, said Inu. For a long time. A pause. Enough. He clenched his fist. Blood came more heavily, seeping between his fingers. He opened his hand over them. A few drops fell to the ground between So-ri and Pak Jun. Inu didn't splatter it intentionally, didn't attack. He simply opened his hand. The drops touched the ground. The grass at their feet, the same story as under the porch 2 years ago, turned yellow, curled up. So Ri pulled her feet back, looked at the grass, then at her husband. 2 years of your poison, said Inu. My blood is now your work. A long pause. Blood for blood. Live with that. He turned around, walked back toward the mill. He didn't look back. The village hummed until nightfall. The hunters, those who had survived, 5 of the 7, didn't leave. They stood as a group at the northern edge and looked at the place where the gates had been, speaking quietly among themselves. Inu bandaged his arm, sat down on the threshold of the mill. The group's commander approached him, a man of about 40, with the look of someone who had seen much and was rarely surprised. He introduced himself briefly. Sun Gi, Rank B, Hunters Association, Eastern District. He sat down beside him without being invited. You're not an awakened one, he said. Not a question. A conclusion. No. No rank. No weapon. No technique. No. Then explain what happened. Inu considered whether he should. Then decided that a rank B hunter who had witnessed what happened with his own eyes wouldn't leave without an answer regardless. He explained briefly. 2 years, poison, adaptation, blood. Without unnecessary details, Sungi listened without interrupting. He was silent for a long time afterward. Your wife was poisoning you for 2 years, he said slowly. Yes. And you ate. Yes. Deliberately. Toward the end, yes. The first 6 months, no. The commander looked at him. How much poison over 2 years? A little each day. Inu shrugged. In total, I don't know. A lot. And your blood. Kills a monster in seconds. Drives the others away with the smell. Sun Gi stood up. Paced. Came back. Inusi. Do you understand that this is unique? I understand. The association will want to study you. I know. Are you ready for that? Inu looked at his bandaged arm, at the dark patch showing through the bandage. The blood had been reluctant to stop for a long time, then calmed down. "Not now," he said. "I need to finish things here first." "What things?" "Personal ones." Sun Gi looked at him, with the expression of a professional who had understood enough not to ask again. "Very well." He took out a card, heavy paper with the association seal. "When you're ready, ask for Sun Gi at the Eastern Branch." Inu took the card. "Thank you." The hunter left. That evening, So-ri packed her things. Inu sat at the table and drank tea. Plain, without the bitter note, brewed by himself. He heard her moving through the rooms, the opening and closing of drawers. She came out into the hallway with a bag, stopped at the door. "Inu," she said. He didn't turn around. "I didn't want to," she began. "You did," he said quietly. "Otherwise you wouldn't have done it for 2 years." Silence. "Where will you go now?" she asked. A strange question, as though his plans still concerned her. "None of your business." The door opened, closed. Inu sat alone in the quiet house, drank his tea, thought about how tomorrow he would need to leave the mill. The job was no longer his. Thought about Sangi's card in his pocket. Thought about the dark blood that had dripped onto the grass and left yellow stains. Thought about what came next. The answer was simple: forward. There had never been any other option. A week later, Inu arrived in the city, for the first time in 3 years. The village of Seoul gave no reason to leave. Everything he needed was there. The city felt different, louder, faster, with that constant movement that a village person at first takes for anxiety and then gets used to. He found the eastern branch of the Hunters Association without difficulty, a large building in the center, with an emblem on the facade. He went in. Reception. A young woman with a tablet. Name and rank: Choi Inu. No rank. The woman looked up. No rank. Not an awakened one. Then what is the nature of your visit? Sun Gi said to come. A pause. Something changed in her expression. Not obviously, barely. Please wait. He waited 15 minutes. Then Sun Gi came out, and with him another person. Older, in a uniform with insignia that Inu didn't know how to read, but understood. A high rank. "Inu-si," said Sun Gi. "This is Director Han, head of the Eastern Branch." Director Han was a man of about 55. Short, stocky, with the face of someone who makes decisions quickly and rarely revisits them. He looked at Inu with that professional interest which he neither concealed nor displayed. It simply was. "Come with me," he said. The director's office, 3rd floor, large windows overlooking the city. A desk, 3 chairs, a cabinet with documents. No unnecessary furniture. They sat down. Sun Gi wrote a detailed report, said Director Han. I read it. A pause. 2 years of daily poisoning, bodily adaptation, blood containing a lethal toxin. He looked at Inu. Do you understand how unusual this is? I understand. Unusual is putting it mildly. Han opened a folder in front of him. In 20 years of the association's work, we have recorded nothing like this. Not a single case. A pause. Theoretically, this is described as adaptive toxification of the organism. But the theory did not assume the human body was capable of such a result. Apparently it is, said Inu. Apparently. Han closed the folder. Inu-si, I will be direct. The association wants to offer you a collaboration. What kind of collaboration? Field operations. Han spoke evenly. Monsters react to the smell of your blood. Fear and death on contact. This is a weapon, a unique one. A pause. But you have no rank, no combat training, no hunting experience. I know. So if we come to an agreement, you will need training. Physical conditioning, tactics, group work. Han looked at him directly. This is not fast. Months. Possibly a year, Inu thought. What do I get? A hunter's salary, housing while in training, and official status? Han tilted his head slightly. Without status, anyone interested will want to study you. With status, you are under the association's protection. Official status without a rank, a special category. There are no precedents. We will create a new one. For the first time, something resembling a smile in Han's voice. You are already a precedent in everything. Inu looked out the window. The city lived below. Noisy, fast. In the village of Saul, there remained a mill without an owner, an empty house, and yellow stains on the grass beneath the porch. Very well, he said. Agreed. Training began 3 days later. The instructor was a woman of about 35, rank A. Her name was Li Jiyu. Short hair, economical movements, a direct gaze. Inu understood within the first 10 minutes. She had no intention of making allowances for the fact that he was a village miller without a rank. Good. First session. Assessment of physical condition. Running, pull-ups, weight work. Inu was not an athlete, a miller, physical work, but monotonous. By hunter standards, weak. Li Jiyu looked at the results. Worse than I expected, she said without hostility. A statement of fact. I know, but your endurance is good. She made notes. 2 years of chronic poisoning should have destroyed your endurance. In your case, the opposite. The poison trained the body. You could put it that way. She looked up. Inusi, I read Songi's report. You understand that your strength is specific. Blood, which means you need to receive cuts in combat? That is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because a cut in combat means a monster got close enough to reach you. She spoke clearly. So either you need to be able to control distance until the last possible moment, or you need to deliberately create cuts yourself. A pause. The second option requires a composure that not everyone has. I have it, said Inu. Li Jiyu looked at him. Where does that confidence come from? For 2 years, I endured pain in silence every night so as not to wake the wife who was poisoning me. Simple. I have composure. A long pause. Very well, she said. Then we'll start with distance control. For 3 months, Inu trained. Every day, 6 hours of physical conditioning and tactics with Li Jiyu. Additionally, lectures on monster classification, gate structure, and hunting group methods. He learned quickly, not because he was especially talented, because he could do what he had always been able to do, endure and work methodically. Each skill like fixing a fence. Step by step, without hurrying, without unnecessary movements. Li Jiyu noticed this after a month. Inu si, she said after a session, you have a peculiar quality. Which one? You don't rush? She spoke thoughtfully. Most people without a rank in your position would try to compensate with speed. Learn fast? Prove yourself fast? You don't. A pause. Why? Because haste makes mistakes, said Inu. And a mistake involving my blood is not only my problem. Li Jiyu looked at him for a moment. Correct way of thinking, she said. The blood test was conducted in the 2nd week. The association's laboratory, white walls, equipment Inu couldn't name, 3 scientists in lab coats. Blood was taken in the usual way. Needle, test tube. Inu watched the dark blood slowly fill the glass. The scientists took it away. They worked for 2 days. The results. Director Han read aloud himself in the same office with the large windows. A toxin, he said. Complex, compound. In structure, it resembles a concentrate of several plant-based poisons simultaneously. He looked at the documents. But it is not simply a mixture. Your organism processed them, synthesized something new, something that does not exist in nature. A pause. Our experts call it a biosynthetic neurotoxin. He looked up. Lethal dose for a human. 3 drops. For monsters of rank C and below, instant death on contact. For rank B, several seconds. And rank A. Han was silent for a moment. The test was not conducted on a living rank A monster. In laboratory conditions, a 70% reduction in function. In practice, unknown. Rank S, theoretically insufficient. Han closed the folder. But your blood is what you have right now. Not a final point. What do you mean? The poison in your body continues to work. The adaptation has not stopped. It is ongoing. Han looked directly at him. Our experts believe that within a year or 2, under the right conditions, the toxin in your blood will become stronger, significantly. The right conditions meaning what? Continued exposure to poison. A pause. Your wife is no longer poisoning you. The process will slow, Inu thought. So I need a new source of poison. We can help with that, said Han. The association has access to poisons from monsters of various ranks. If you are willing to continue, in a controlled manner, with medical supervision. I'm willing. It will be painful. I know what pain is, said Inu. 3 months into training, the first official raid. Not independent, as part of a group. Rank C gates in a small town to the north. 3 monsters according to reconnaissance data. The group, 5 hunters of ranks B and C and Inu without a rank with special status. At the briefing, the group commander, a rank B hunter named Cha Minu, looked at Inu with the expression Inu had already learned to read. Skepticism concealed behind professional courtesy. Inu-si, said Cha Minu, your role in the raid is support, not initiative. The group works according to standard tactics. You only step in if the situation gets out of hand. Understood. And don't cut yourself ahead of time. Not with irony. Seriously. Toxin in an enclosed space is dangerous for everyone. Understood. They entered the portal. Inside, the standard geometry of rank C gates. Stone corridors, dim light of unclear origin, a smell that was difficult to describe. Damp, heavy, otherworldly. The first monster around the corner. Medium-sized rank C, standard for such gates. The group took it down in a minute. Coordinated, professional. Inu stood at the back, observed, learned. The second monster was harder, larger, faster. The hunters worked, but the monster absorbed the blows and didn't stop. A shell again. A different type, but the same problem. Cha Minu held his position, called out without turning. Inu. Inu stepped forward. He took out a knife. Small, he'd been carrying it since the conversation with Li Jiyu about deliberate cuts. Drew it across his palm quickly, not deep. 2 centimeters. Enough. He clenched his fist, opened it over the monster. 3 drops. The monster stopped mid-motion, literally in the middle of a step. Stood for a second. Fell. Silence in the corridor. The hunters stared. A warning would be nice, said one of them quietly. Not hostile. Taken aback. The third monster caught the smell before they even found it. It ran. The group caught up. Inu wasn't needed. They exited. Cha Minu stopped beside Inu on the way out. Inu-si, he said. Yes. Bandage your hand. A pause. And good work. Inu nodded. Bandaged his hand. First raid, complete. Reputation in the association is a particular currency. It builds slowly, through real results. It collapses quickly from a single mistake. Inu understood this within the first month of raids, after 5 operations in different teams with different commanders. People spoke differently, some with interest, that unawakened one with the poisonous blood. Heard monsters of rank B are afraid of him, others with skepticism. One trick. Let's see what happens against something serious. Inu heard both versions. He reacted to neither. He worked. By the 6th month, the body had changed again. The association had put him on a controlled exposure program with monster poisons. Once a week, a small dose of rank C poison under medical supervision. Painful. Familiarly painful. Inu knew how to handle it. The blood grew darker. Slowly, but the laboratory recorded the changes. The toxin was becoming more complex, more concentrated, and something else, different. Inu began to notice that the smell of his blood had become perceptible. Not to people. People felt nothing, but monsters reacted earlier, not only to contact with the blood, to his proximity. He tested it on the 8th raid, rank B gates, difficult monsters. They entered the portal. Inu walked in the center of the group. A monster around the corner, before it even saw them, made a sound. Not a roar. Something quieter. More uneasy. It retreated. Cha Minu, he more and more often led the group with Inu, had grown accustomed to the non-standard tactics. Stopped. They sense you, he said. Yes, because of the smell, because of the blood. It's more. Concentrated now. Inu spoke quietly. Monsters can feel it at a distance. How far? Let's check. They checked. Inu walked first, which violated every safety protocol, but Chaminu said nothing, understanding why. The rank B monsters in those gates, 4 of them. One by one they fell back before him. Slowly, reluctantly, like animals that are afraid but don't want to show it. One didn't retreat. The largest one. It charged. Inu didn't dodge. He took the blow, to the shoulder, hard. He flew into the wall. Painful. But the monster had touched him. His skin, his sleeve, it fell 2 seconds later. The 3 remaining ones saw it. They caught the smell of blood that had risen from the impact. They fled without looking back. The group didn't even need to engage. Chaminu helped Inu to his feet, ribs, intact. Inu touched his shoulder. A bruise. You let it hit you deliberately. I wanted to test the reaction speed of the contact toxin on a rank B. And 2 seconds. Inu looked at the dead monster. The first time it was instant. Rank C, rank B, 2 seconds. A pause. So rank A will take longer. I need to know how long. Not today, said Chaminu. Not today, Inu agreed. 8 months in. She found him. Inu hadn't expected it. He hadn't been thinking about her. Not that he had forgotten, simply that life moved forward and there was no point in looking back. She came to the association building. She stood at the entrance in the same clothes she always wore, slightly thinner, with the expression of someone who had been working up to doing something for a long time and had finally managed. Inu saw her when he was leaving after a briefing. He stopped. He looked. So Ri approached. Inu, she said. So Ri. Silence. You look. Well, she said. Not a compliment, a statement. Inu had genuinely changed. 8 months of training and proper nutrition had made something else out of the miller. Not a fighter yet, but no longer the quiet man she had known. What do you need? He asked. To talk. About what? She looked at him, then lowered her gaze. Pak Jun left. Quietly. A month after I moved in with him. He found someone else. A pause. I went back to the village. There. She stopped. There what? Everyone knows. About the poison. Sangi told them when he was compiling the official report. Her voice carried no accusation towards Sangi. He had been doing his job. They don't talk to me. A pause. I'm not asking to come back. She faltered. I don't know why I came. Inu looked at her. He thought about what he felt. Not rage. Rage would have been simpler. Not pity. Pity would have been more convenient. Something in between. That feeling when you understand that a story has ended, and there was no good ending or bad ending, just an end. So Ri, he said. Yes. You caused me pain. For a long time. He spoke evenly without raising his voice. I didn't die. That is your failure as a killer. A pause. But I also became who I am now. In part because of you. She looked at him. I am not thanking you for that, he continued. You weren't doing it for me. You were doing it against me. The difference matters. A long pause. But hating you is a waste of time that I don't have. Silence. Go home, he said. Or wherever you want. He turned around. Live. He walked back toward the entrance. He didn't look back. Behind him, silence. Then footsteps walking away in the other direction. Inu went inside. He closed the door. The 10th month. Rank A gates. For the first time. Director Han summoned him personally. The situation was urgent. Gates had opened in the industrial district of the city. Large ones. By estimates, 1 rank A monster inside and several smaller ones. The standard group for rank A, 10 hunters of ranks A and B. The problem? 2 from the planned group were on another assignment. 8 people. I suggest including Inu C, said Sangi at the briefing. The group commander for this raid was a rank A huntress, Kim Ari, around 40, with that precision of movement that comes to people of the highest rank. She looked at Inu. Not awakened. No rank. 9 raids. She listed the facts. Why? Because rank A reacts to his blood, said Sun-gi. The laboratory confirmed. The toxin has grown by 40% over 10 months. 40% from a baseline we never measured against a living rank A monster. Yes, but the direction of growth is correct. Kim Ari looked at Inu. Inu-si. Your opinion? It needs to be tested in practice, said Inu. The laboratory is the laboratory. Combat conditions are different. If the toxin doesn't work on a rank A in combat conditions, you're dead. If I don't find out now, I'll find out later under worse conditions, said Inu. Better now? With a group. A pause. Very well, said Kim Ari. You're in. But the same rules that Cha Minu established. Support. Not initiative. Understood. Inside the gates, a different atmosphere. Rank A? You could feel it physically. The pressure in the air, different. Like the difference between an ordinary room and a room before a storm. Something tense in the very space itself. Smaller monsters, 4 of them. The group cleared in 10 minutes. Coordinated, without Inu. He walked at the back, observing. Then they found the main one. Rank A looked different from C and B, not simply larger. A different structure, smarter in movement, with that particular quality that belongs to things which are older and more dangerous. It looked at the group. It sensed Inu. It didn't run, not its nature. But it slowed. It turned toward him. Something in its posture changed. Not fear, something more complex. Caution. Like a predator that has caught a scent of something unfamiliar and is taking measure. Kim Ari, from the corner of her vision. Quietly. It's reacting. Yes, Inu just as quietly. To the smell. To the smell. So it can sense the toxin. A pause. How cautious is it? It's watching, not attacking. Is that good or bad? For now, good. The monster took a step, not toward the group, toward Inu, directly toward him. The group tensed. Kim Ari raised her weapon. Inu took a step forward. The monster stopped. That caution again, studying. Inu drew his knife. Slowly, no sudden movements, ran it across his palm, felt the blood rise, dark, warm, opened his palm toward the monster. The monster flinched back, first time. A clear backward movement. No longer caution, closer to fear. Good sign, said Inu. Attack, the monster answered. Not with words, with action. It lunged not toward Inu, toward the group, circled him in a wide arc. Smart. The group met it. Kim Ari worked at A rank level. That was a different Kim Ari worked at A rank level. That was a different speed, a different precision. The blow she landed broke through the shell where the group's strikes only glanced off. The monster was taking damage slowly, but taking it. The problem? It regenerated. Inu watched from the side. The cuts on the shell were closing, not instantly, over several seconds. But the group was dealing damage slower than the monster recovered. The math wasn't in the group's favor. Kim Ari saw it too. A glance sideways at Inu. Time. Understood. Inu moved. Not straight, in an arc, the way the monster had circled him. Came in from behind while the group held its attention at the front. The monster didn't see him. It saw 8 hunters pressing from the front. Close to 2 meters. Felt it. The monster sensed him from behind. Started to turn. Inu jumped. Not as an attack, just a leap onto the monster's back. Wrapped one arm around its neck where the shell gave way to softer tissue. With his left hand, the one with the cut on the palm, he pressed down, blood on the soft tissue of the neck. The monster roared. Didn't fall immediately, A rank. It shook. Inu flew off, hit the wall. Pain. Something crunched in the shoulder, not broken, sprained. But the blood stayed on the monster's neck. The monster slowed, after a second. Another second, more. Its movements became heavy, uncoordinated. Like a person losing consciousness while standing. Kim Ari didn't miss the moment. 3 strikes in a row. Fast, precise, into an already slowed opponent. The shell caved in. The monster fell. Silence. Inu sat against the wall, holding his shoulder. Kim Ari walked over, looking down at him. The shoulder. Sprain. Not a fracture, you're sure? It moves. He wiggled his fingers. Sure. She crouched beside him, examined it professionally. Sprain, she agreed. A week of rest. 3 days. A week. Inu didn't argue. He'd understood after one raid, arguing with Kim Ari was pointless. The toxin works on A rank, he said. It works. Significant slowdown. She was looking at the dead monster, but not instant like on C. And not 2 or 3 seconds like on B. How long did it take? 4 seconds to slow down. Another 3 to loss of coordination. 7 seconds. A pause. In 7 seconds, an A rank kills a hunter. I know. That's why I needed the moment when it was busy with the group. Inu spoke evenly. One-on-one with an A rank is a different story. One we're not testing today. One we're not testing today, he agreed. That evening, Kim Ari found him in the medical bay. Inu was sitting while a doctor bandaged his shoulder. Kim Ari came in, nodded to the doctor. He stepped out. She sat across from him. Inu, see. I want to ask you something personal. May I? Go ahead. Your wife who was poisoning you, she said. She dropped to informal speech without explanation. Just switched. You were eating it deliberately. You knew it was poison. You ate it. Yes. Why? Really? Inu thought. At first I waited. I thought she'd stop on her own. He spoke slowly, not because it was hard, but because he was choosing his words precisely. Then I realized she wouldn't stop. And I realized that. A pause. That the poison was changing me. I could feel it. You felt yourself getting stronger. Not stronger, different, he corrected. A miller doesn't become strong from poison, but different. I didn't know what kind, I just felt that the process was happening. He looked at the bandaged shoulder, decided not to interrupt it. You risked your life for a process you didn't understand. I was risking my life every night from the poison already in the food. The only difference is whether you do it passively or with intention. Kim Ari looked at him. You're a strange person, she said. I know. That's not an insult. I know. Silence. Inu, she said quietly. Today you jumped onto an A-rank monster with a cut palm and an empty hand. A pause. You had no fear. I did. I didn't see it. Fear isn't always visible, he said. I felt it. It's just that fear is information. It says something is dangerous. It doesn't say what to do. And what says what to do? Math, said Inu. The group was losing momentum. The monster was regenerating. There were 2 options, retreat or intervene. Retreat meant losses in the group or a failed raid. Intervening meant risk to me. A pause. I'm 1 person. The group is 8. That's not math. That's sacrifice. That's efficiency, Inu corrected. Sacrifice is when the outcome is known in advance as a loss. I wasn't planning to lose. Kim Ari looked at him for a long time. Then she stood. A week of rest, she said at the door. Then I want to take you on the next raid, if Han allows it. He'll allow it, said Inu. Where does that confidence come from? Because he's a practical man. Inu smiled slightly. He rarely did. And I'm a practical result. Kim Ari almost smiled back. She left. A year. Choi Inu noted it to himself. Not as a celebration, just noted it. He sat one evening in his room in the association dormitory and thought that exactly 1 year ago he had worked at a mill and eaten bitter soup. A lot had changed. Physically, unrecognizable. A year of training with Li Ju and independent work had turned a miller into someone no random passerby would call ordinary. Not massive, lean, with that particular density of movement that comes from people accustomed to constant load. Blood. The lab recorded it every 2 weeks. The toxin had grown 80% from the baseline over the year. The Monster Venom Contact program ran every week under a doctor's supervision. A small dose. Painfully routine. The body accepted it. Results. 23 raids in a year. 6 of them B rank, 2 A rank. 0 failures. 0 losses in the groups he'd worked with. That last point Inu considered more important than everything else. Director Han had called him in for a conversation 3 days before the anniversary. Inu see. Han spoke directly, as always. The association would like to offer you an official rank. I'm not an awakened. The ranking system doesn't strictly require awakening, said Han. It measures combat effectiveness. A pause. Your indicators over the past year. He opened a folder. Closed it. Kim Ari compared your combat effectiveness to an A-rank hunter. Formally. Kim Ari exaggerates. Kim Ari never exaggerates, said Han. That's her greatest flaw from a diplomatic standpoint, and her greatest strength from an assessment standpoint, Inu thought. What rank? B, with the note, special status. Han looked at him directly. Not A because you're not awakened and the system insists on certain criteria, but B is justified. All right. And one more thing, said Han. Other divisions want to see you, not only the eastern one. Requests are coming in. The Western, Northern, Central. A pause. Rumors spread fast when it comes to something this unconventional. What do they want? Consultations? Participation in complex raids? And some want to understand the mechanics of your particularity. Academically, Inu thought. Not yet, he said. Why? Because I'm not finished here. He looked at Han. A rank in single combat. I haven't tested that yet. A pause. I want to know the limit before I start traveling to other divisions. One-on-one with an A rank is a risk the association cannot officially sanction. I know. That's why, unofficially. Han looked at him for a long time. You understand that I didn't hear that proposal. I understand. Good. Han closed the folder. I didn't hear it. A pause. But be careful. Inu arranged the solo test through Song-gi, not a lab test. Real. A small A-rank gate in an abandoned industrial district. According to reconnaissance, 1 monster inside. Small size for an A-rank. Suitable conditions. Song-gi stood outside. If you're not out in 20 minutes, I'm coming in with a group. I'll be out. Inu. Song-gi spoke without formality. Over the year, they had become something like comrades. I don't have to tell you this, but you're one of a kind. If you die in there, I won't die. How do you? Because I have things to do, said Inu simply. The raids aren't finished. The toxin isn't at its peak. I'm not at the place where dying is an option. Song-gi looked at him. Your logic is strange. It works, said Inu. He entered the gate. Inside, quiet. A small A-rank gate wasn't as oppressive a space as a large one, but the same smell. The same sense of the otherworldly. The monster found Inu first. Not Inu, the monster. It came around the corner. 2.5 meters, compact for an A rank. Fast. Inu understood that immediately from how it moved. Not that slow heaviness like the last one. Light. Agile. A bad setup for the jump on the back tactic. It sensed him. Slowed. That same caution. But this specimen looked differently. It was thinking. A rank had an intelligence that C and B didn't have. It was assessing. Inu was assessing too. Knife in the right hand, left palm already cut, blood barely surfaced, enough for the scent. The monster took a step, cautious. Inu stood still. Another step. Still. The monster attacked, sharply, without warning, with a speed that left no time for reaction by standard measures. Inu dodged. Not completely. The right thigh. The claw caught it at a glance, tore the pant leg, scraped the skin. Not deep. Enough. Blood from the thigh now too. The monster landed 3 meters away, turned around, sensed the blood from the thigh, fresher, more saturated from movement. Froze. Inu felt the moment, stepped forward, not toward the head, toward the side. The monster reacted, turned. That was exactly what Inu wanted. Exposed throat. One movement. Left hand, open palm to the monster's throat. Blood on soft tissue. The monster roared, leaped back. Inu didn't pursue. He stood, he waited, 5 seconds. The monster moved fast, erratically, trying to shake off something invisible, rubbing its throat against the wall. 7 seconds. The movement slowed. 10. It fell. Inu stood over it, watching. Still alive. It breathed for a few more seconds. Then no. 10 seconds. Slightly longer than last time when there was a group and the monster was occupied. One-on-one, no distraction. 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, a hunter without a rank could die. Could, but didn't. Because he had known about the 10 seconds in advance and built the fight around that parameter. Information is worth more than strength. Inu bandaged his thigh with whatever was on hand. He walked out of the gate. Song-gi looked at him, at the torn pants, at the bandage. Alive? Alive? The monster? No. Song-gi exhaled. How many seconds? 10 from contact to death. Inu spoke evenly, as if after a workday. Assuming the monster isn't occupied with another target. If it is, less. 10 seconds is a long time in a fight. I know. I'm working on it. Inu headed toward the exit of the district. The toxin grows. In 6 months, it might be 7. In a year? 5? And then we'll talk about S rank. Song-gi stopped. You're serious? Always, said Inu. 3 months later, he went after all. Not because he'd changed his mind about the limit, because a request came in that couldn't be ignored. The Western Division. An A-rank gate plus an intermediate category between A and S. Rare. Local hunters had lost 2 people on the first attempt to close it. They were requesting assistance. Director Han showed him the request personally. I'm not ordering, he said. This is voluntary. I'll go, said Inu. Why so fast? Because they lost 2 on the first attempt. Inu looked at the request. That means they'll go for a second with the same forces. There are no others. They'll lose more. That's not your responsibility. I know. A pause. I'll go. The western city was large, industrial. Different from the eastern district the way sky differs from Earth. Tall buildings. A lot of technology. The association here wasn't a small office but a full complex. He was met by the Western Division commander. A woman around 45, A rank, Pai Sonu. Short hair, uniform without unnecessary decoration, an assessing gaze. Choi Inu, she said. B rank, special status. I've read the reports. Commander Pei, I'll be direct, she said. I'm a skeptic by nature. I read about the toxic blood. Sounds like a fairy tale. A pause. But I lost 2 of my people, so I'm listening. What kind of monster is inside? Unknown species. First time we've encountered it. Pai Sonu opened her tablet, showed an image, taken apparently by someone's camera from the first group. Size, 4 meters. Count, presumably 1. Notable feature, regeneration faster than a standard A rank. Inu looked at the image. The monster was dark, almost black shell. Several pairs of limbs. Head disproportionately large, with sensory organs that were clearly more developed than usual. Its sense of smell is developed, said Inu. How do you know? The structure of the head. The sensory organs are large. Inu looked at the image. It'll smell the blood earlier than usual. That's a plus. Why a plus? Because the sooner it smells it, the sooner it gets scared. Pai Sonu looked at him. Are you sure your toxin will work on this one? No, honestly. I'm only sure of one thing. We need to test it. A pause. But I have results against a standard A rank. If this one is stronger, it'll take more time. I need a group that can keep it occupied for those seconds. How many seconds? I don't know exactly. Against a standard one, 10 alone. Against this one, maybe 15. Maybe 20. In 20 seconds, we can lose people. You can, Inu agreed. That's why I need the best from your division. Not the brave ones. The best. The ones who know how to hold a position under pressure for exactly as long as needed. No more and no less. Pai Sonu looked at him for a long time. You talk like a commander. I talk like a person who needs a precise instrument, said Inu. Nothing personal. All right, she closed the tablet. I'll give you 4, the best. Tomorrow morning. All right, Inu-si, She stopped him at the door. If this works, I'll write a report to the Central Division, personally. No need. There is, she said, because the Central Division needs to know what we have. A pause. What you are? Inu nodded. He left. Inside the gate, the atmosphere was different from the Eastern District. A rank plus, it was felt. The pressure was stronger. The space seemed to resist presence. Pei Sonu's 4 hunters walked behind. Professionals, Inu assessed that within the first minutes by the way they moved through an unfamiliar space. No excess tension. Ready. They found the monster in the central hall of the gate. 4 meters, not an exaggeration, large. The dark shell almost absorbed the light of the gate. Several pairs of limbs moved slowly, not because it was slow, because it wasn't in a hurry. It was waiting. It sensed them before it saw them. Inu caught the moment. The head turned not toward sound, but toward smell. Large sensory organs, definitely. It turned toward Inu, froze. Not that caution that the previous ones had. Something more intense. As if the smell of his blood. Inu had cut his palm back at the entrance, out of habit, for a constant background. Provoked not just caution, but something bordering on panic. It senses more strongly, one of the 4 said quietly from behind. Yes, Inu, just as quietly. Is that good? We'll see. The monster suddenly roared. Loud, with that vibration that could be felt physically in the chest. It wasn't attacking. It was roaring. A warning. Smart, said Inu. What do we do? Said the group commander, an A-rank hunter named Soha. Standard. Keep it occupied. I need a moment of contact. A pause. This one is fast. The shell is dense. Look for soft spots, joints, neck, base of the limbs. We know. Then start. The group moved. The monster met them, and immediately it was clear why the first group had lost 2 people. The speed didn't match the size. 4 meters moved like 1.5. Fast, unpredictable, with sharp changes of direction. Soha dodged, pulled back, drew the monster toward herself. The other 3 worked the flanks. Strikes to the shell. No visible effect. The joints were better. The monster took damage. Regenerated quickly, as had been said, but it was occupied with the group. Inu waited. Watched. Counted. The monster moved in a fixed pattern. Attack, pull back, reorient. The cycle took about 8 seconds. At the end of the cycle, a fraction of a second when it turned. In that moment, the side opened. Not the neck. The side. Where a limb joined the body. Soft tissue. 8 seconds. A fraction of a second at the end. Inu timed 3 cycles, confirmed the rhythm. On the 4th, he moved. He ran not toward the monster but parallel to it, along an arc. The monster didn't see him. It saw the group. End of the cycle. The turn. Inu dove under a limb, between 2 pairs of legs, and hit the soft tissue of the side with an open palm. Blood into the wound. The monster roared differently than before. A high sound, sharp. It turned. Inu had already rolled away. They looked at each other. Inu counted. 1 second. 2. The monster attacked toward him, not the group. Smart. It understood where the threat came from. 5 seconds. Inu evaded the attacks, not always cleanly. 1 limb caught his shoulder, the same one he'd sprained last time. Sharp pain. He held his ground. 8 seconds. The monster's movements slightly slower, barely noticeable, but noticeable. 10. Soha saw it. Without words, by movement, she struck the slowing opponent. The 3 others followed. 12 seconds. The monster fell. Silence in the hall. Inu stood, breathed. The shoulder hurt, the same one again. This time possibly more than a sprain. Soha walked over. The shoulder. I know, second time, same one. I know, Inu repeated. I'll work on that. 12 seconds, she said. I was counting. Yes, against a standard A rank you have 10. This one is stronger. Good regeneration. The toxin works slower. 2 seconds slower. For now, said Inu. Soha looked at him. You keep strengthening the toxin. Contact with new monster venom every 2 weeks. Simple. The process is ongoing. To what limit? I don't know, honestly. No one does. No precedents. So Ha nodded. Then it'll be interesting to watch, she said. They exited the gate. A year and a half after the village of Seoul, the Hunters Association. An official report to the Central Division. Pei Sonu wrote it as promised. The Central Division read it. Responded, a request for a meeting. Inu read the request over breakfast. The Central Division, said Songyi across from him. They had breakfast together, a habit of recent months. Yes, you'll go. I'll go. You're nervous? No, said Inu. The Central Division is the largest structure of the association in the country. S-rank hunters work there. Decisions are made there that affect… Songyi, Inu cut in. Yes? I ate poisoned food every day for 2 years and endured pain every night in silence. Inu set down his cup. A meeting with management doesn't make me nervous. Songyi was quiet. Fair enough, he agreed. The Central Division, the capital, a large city Inu was seeing for the first time. Tall, fast, loud. The association building in the center, not just large, monumental. 20 floors, glass and metal, guards at the entrance in uniforms Inu hadn't seen before. He went in. The reception was different from the eastern one. 3 people behind the desk, a queue of hunters. All with ranks, some with patches Inu recognized as A and above. Name and rank. Choi Inu, B rank, special status. A moment of silence behind the desk. You're expected, the woman said. 18th floor. 18th floor. A conference room. Large, with a view of the city. 3 people at the table. A man around 60 in the center. Inu didn't know his name but understood the level from the patches. Management. A woman around 50 beside him and an S-rank man. A patch Inu had only seen in photos and training materials. They looked at him. Inu sat across from them. No unnecessary movements. Choi Inu, said the man in the center. A voice accustomed to being listened to. Head of the Central Division, Li Guang, Director Li. I've read all the reports. Eastern, Western. Kim Ari's report, Pei Sonu's report. A pause. 26 raids. 8 B rank, 3 A rank, 1 A rank plus. He looked directly. 0 losses in the groups. Yes. 0 awakenings. 0 rank by the standard system initially. Li Guang spoke evenly. Biosynthetic neurotoxin as the only tool. A pause. Do you understand how unconventional this is? I've been told. Inu C. Li Guang leaned slightly forward. We want to offer you a position, not a rank-and-file hunter of the Eastern District. A pause. Special agent of the Central Division. Work across the entire country. Access to resources that regional divisions don't have. And continuation of the toxin strengthening program under the supervision of the best specialists, Inu thought. What in return? Readiness for assignments of any level. A pause. Including S rank if necessary. If necessary. When you're ready. Silence. S rank when the toxin reaches the required level, said Inu. Yes, that's a year at minimum, maybe more. We know. Li Guang looked directly. We're not in a hurry. We wait. The S-rank hunter beside Li Guang spoke for the first time. Young. Around 35 with that particular calm that belongs to people who have nothing to prove about their strength. Inusi, he said. My name is John Ho. A pause. I'm the only S-rank in the Central Division. I know, from the patch. I'm 40 years old. Awakened at 19. 21 years of hunting. He spoke evenly. In 21 years, I've seen a great deal. Awakened with rare abilities. Hunters who became legends. A pause. Not a single unawakened person that monsters fear. First time for everything, said Inu. John Ho looked at him for a moment, then smiled briefly. First time for everything, he repeated. Well said. He left the building in the evening. The city was alive. Lights, movement, the smell of food from street stalls. Inu walked along the sidewalk without hurry, thinking about the conversation. Special Agent, Central Division, Resources, S-rank and Prospect. A year ago, The mill. Bitter soup. Pain at night. Almost funny. The phone vibrated. Songgi's number on the screen. "So, how did it go?" he asked without preamble. I agreed. Expected. A pause. Inu. "Yes. The village of Seoul sent an official letter to the association. In your name." "What's in the letter?" "Gratitude. For protecting the village during the first gate." Songgi's voice slightly different. "Signed by all the residents." "Even?" He paused. "So re-signed it." A long pause. "Yes." Inu walked along the sidewalk, thinking. "Good," he said at last. "Good, all of it. Good, all of it." Songgi was quiet. "You're a strange person, Inu. I know. See you tomorrow." He put the phone away. He stopped at an intersection, the city lights, people walking past, fast, caught up in their own lives. Not one of them knew who was standing at the intersection, not awakened. No rank initially. A man from the village of Seoul who ate poison for 2 years and survived. And became something that hadn't existed before. Not a hero. Inu didn't think of himself that way. Just a person who took what he was given and made something of his own from it. He walked on. The city lived. Inu moved through it, not rushing, not slow, at his own pace. Ahead, S-rank, a toxin that kept growing. Raids that hadn't happened yet. Monsters that hadn't yet caught his scent. A lot of work. Good. Work was what Inu had always known how to do. The move took 3 days. Inu didn't have much. Clothes, a few books on monster anatomy he'd taken from the Eastern Division library, the knife he'd carried since his first raid. Everything fit in one backpack. Songgi saw him off at the station. "Call if anything," he said. "I'll call if anything." And Inu. Songgi spoke without formality. "The Eastern Division is proud of you. Han asked me to pass that on personally. Pass on my thanks." "Already did." A pause. "Take care of the shoulder." "Both of them." Inu nodded. He boarded the train, watched through the window as the eastern city shrank behind the glass. Without sentimentality, he just watched. That place had given him a beginning. Now, onward. The Central Division provided housing, a small apartment 15 minutes from the building. Clean, functional, with a view of the park. Inu looked it over in 3 minutes and decided it would do. The following morning, introduction to the team. Conference room on the 18th floor. 8 people, all ranked from B to A. The special unit of the Central Division, Inu learned later that it was officially called the Department of Non-Standard Operations. It handled gates that didn't fit the standard classification. Li Guang made the introduction briefly. Choi Inu, Special Agent, biosynthetic neurotoxin in the blood. A pause. Details. You've read them in the reports. 8 people looked at Inu. Inu looked at them. Different faces, different reactions. Curiosity, skepticism, neutrality. One face tense. A man around 38, A rank, with the expression of someone who doesn't like when an outsider is brought into their team. Inu noted it, remembered it. "Questions," said Li Guang. The tense man raised his hand. "Namjoon," he introduced himself. A rank. Senior of the unit. He looked at Inu directly. Inu C. 26 raids, not one without a cover group. How do you intend to work in a unit where operations often run in small groups or alone? The same as always, said Inu. Meaning, if it's a small group, I adapt to a small group. If it's solo, I adapt to solo work. Inu spoke without challenge. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm saying I learn fast. In raids, there's no time to learn, said Namjoon. I learn before the raid. A pause. Always. Namjoon looked at him for a moment. He didn't agree, but he didn't continue. A young woman to the right raised her hand, B rank, around 28, with that particular sharp attention in her gaze that Inu recognized in people with an analytical mind. Liara, she introduced herself, unit analyst. A pause. Inu C, I don't have a question. I have a proposal. I'd like to run a full analysis of your blood, more detailed than what was done in the Eastern Division. We have equipment that isn't available there. All right, said Inu. Liara nodded and wrote something on her tablet. Quickly, focused. The other 6 were silent, watching. Inu decided this was something he could work with. The analysis was conducted on the 3rd day. The Central Division laboratory was different from the Eastern one, larger, more complex, with equipment Inu was seeing for the first time. Liara worked precisely and without unnecessary words, taking samples, running processes, recording readings. Inu sat on the examination table and watched. A question, he said after some time. Yes, without turning around. You're an analyst, not a hunter. B rank means I completed basic combat training, said Liara. But I work in the field rarely. The laboratory is my place. A pause. Why do you ask? Department of Non-Standard Operations. Usually such departments consist of field people. Non-standard operations require non-standard analysis, she said. Monsters that don't fit the classification, gates with anomalous structure. Someone has to understand this before people go in. Reasonable. Yes. She finally turned, looked at him with the direct gaze Inu had noticed at the introduction. Inu-see, may I ask something personal? Go ahead. Were you aware of what was happening to your body during the 2 years of poisoning? Not fully, honestly. I felt the changes. I didn't understand the mechanics. You weren't afraid. I was, he said. The first few months, pain every night with no understanding of what was happening. The fear was there. A pause. Then I got used to it. The fear became less. Or your tolerance for it grew. More the latter. Liara looked at him. You're an interesting research subject, she said. Subject? I mean from a scientific standpoint. A slightly different tone. Not an apology, just a clarification. The human body shouldn't do what yours does. The adaptation to toxin follows a protocol I understand in theory, but the scale of the result exceeds any theory. The body was forced to adapt, said Inu. There was no other choice. The other choice was to die, said Liara. Most would have died within the first 3 months. Most wouldn't have kept eating deliberately after they understood. That is the key factor, she said. She turned back to the equipment. Not biology, the decision. A pause. That changes the entire equation. Inu looked at her back. He thought that Liara was an interesting person. The analysis results came 2 days later. Liara brought the printout to the conference room, laid it out on the table, explained clearly without unnecessary words. The toxin is more complex than what the Eastern Division recorded, she began. There, the base structure was a neurotoxin built on adapted plant components. She looked at the diagram. Here I see something different. 3 layers. 3. The first, what was there originally from the wife? Plant poison, adapted by the body. She pointed to the diagram. The second, added over the year of the monster venom contact program. Different structure, more complex. A pause. The third, synthesis. Your body took both components and created something new, something that's in neither the first nor the second. What exactly? A molecule I'll call X for now, said Liara. Because there are no analogs and classifying it is difficult. She raised her eyes. It's precisely this one that's responsible for the long-range effect. The smell that monsters detect at a distance, that's X. And it keeps growing. Yes. Liara pointed to another graph. The concentration over the past 3 months has grown by 22%. Steady growth. A pause. If the pace holds, in 8 to 10 months, X will reach a level at which the effect on S-rank monsters becomes computationally possible. Computationally. I'm precise in my words, she said. Computationally means according to the model. In practice, it needs to be tested. I know. Inu looked at the diagram. What's needed to accelerate the growth? Stronger poisons, said Liara. You've had contact with monster venoms up to A rank. She looked at him. S-rank venoms will give a significant leap. But S-rank venoms are not like B or A. She spoke evenly. Controlled contact with S-rank venom is a different level of pain and risk. The body may not adapt fast enough. It could die. Yes, Inu thought. How much time does the body need to prepare before contact with S-rank venom? By my calculations, 3 to 4 months of intermediate venoms. Between A and S, there are intermediate species, not pure S rank, but stronger than A. A stepwise approach reduces the risk. We'll start the stepwise approach. Li Guang needs to approve. He'll approve, said Inu. Where does that confidence come from? Because it's his resources and his plan, said Inu. I'm only doing what we agreed on. Li Ara looked at him. Inu see. One question, not about work. Yes. Are you not afraid of becoming what you're becoming? A pause. Not a hunter, not an awakened. Something different, Inu thought. What was frightening was being a miller who couldn't change anything, he said. What's happening now isn't frightening. Right now I'm moving. Li Ara nodded slowly. I understand, she said quietly. And in her voice, Inu caught something personal in that answer. He didn't ask, not his business. The first real conversation with Namjoon happened 2 weeks later. Not because Inu was avoiding it, their paths simply didn't cross directly. Namjoon was working his own operations, Inu was in an adjustment period, studying the department structure, attending briefings, waiting for the first assignment. They met in the training hall. Late in the evening, Inu trained after dinner, a habit from the Eastern Division. Namjoon came in, not expecting to find anyone. He saw Inu, didn't leave, picked up equipment, started training on the other side. They were silent for 20 minutes. You're working on the shoulder, said Namjoon. Not a question. Inu looked at him. Namjoon was watching the way he moved, the professional gaze of a man accustomed to assessing. Yes, Western Division, the raid with Pai Sonu. Second time, same spot, same mistake. Inu didn't dodge the subject. I go right when the monster strikes from above. I opened the left side. I know, I read the report. Namjoon set down his equipment, walked over. Show me how you dodge. Inu was slightly surprised. He didn't show it. He demonstrated the movement slowly, without an opponent. Namjoon watched. There, he said. The right shoulder goes back before the leg. The axis breaks. The shoulder opens. I know it opens. I don't know how to fix it. The leg has to go first. Namjoon stood beside him, demonstrated. Step first, then shoulder. The shoulder follows the body, it doesn't lead. Inu tried it. Slowly, said Namjoon. Slower. Again. Once more. Better. But the reflex runs deep. It took a long time to develop. Namjoon stepped back. A month of work at minimum. Less. Namjoon looked at him. Overconfident. Methodical, Inu corrected. Working 2 hours a day, the neurological pattern rewrites in 3 weeks. I've tested this with other movements. When did you test it? The first year in the Eastern Division. Instructor Li Ju was building basic technique from scratch. A pause. A miller doesn't move like a hunter. Everything had to be rewritten. Namjoon was silent. Li Ju is a good instructor, he said at last. The best I've seen. We worked together. About 3 years ago. Namjoon spoke neutrally. Strict. Yes? A pause. Inu see, said Namjoon. A different tone. Without the tension that was there at the introduction. At the briefing I was sharp. I noticed. The unit is small. There hadn't been any new people for 2 years. And Li Guang brought you in over the structure, without consulting me as the senior of the unit. I understand, said Inu. That's not a justification, Namjoon clarified. Just an explanation. I accept the explanation. Namjoon looked at him. You don't hold grudges. I do, said Inu, but only the ones that are worth it. A pause. You made a professional remark. That's normal. The senior of a unit is obligated to test a new person. If you hadn't tested me, I'd be concerned. Silence. Strange logic, said Namjoon. It works, Inu replied. Those words a second time. Namjoon almost smiled. Almost. 3 weeks on the reflex, he said. We'll see. He went back to his training. Inu did too. They worked in silence until midnight. The assignment came a month after the move. Briefing. 18th floor, full unit. Li Guang stood at the screen. A gate in the northern region, he said. Industrial city of Hanri. The gate opened 3 days ago. An image on the screen. A large gate in an abandoned factory district. The notable feature, the gate keeps expanding. Standard gates reach a maximum and stabilize. This one is growing. How fast? Asked Namjoon. 10% of volume per day. A pause. At the time of discovery, presumably A rank. By current calculations, between A and S. Silence in the room. How many days until S? Asked Lee Ara. At the current pace, 5 to 6 days. So we need to act now. Exactly. Li Guang looked at the people in the room. The assignment, assessment, and if possible closure of the gate before it reaches S rank. Personnel. Namjoon as commander. Inu, So Hyeon, Pak Ryu. A pause. 4 people. Small composition. Too few for a growing gate, said So Hyeon. A large A-rank man who hadn't said a word through the entire introduction. I know. Li Guang spoke directly. One more notable feature. The gate is located under an old factory. The space. Narrow corridors. Limited maneuver. A large group will create more problems than it solves. Understood. Inusi, Li Guang looked at him. It's precisely for conditions like these that we wanted you in the unit. Tight space, strong opponent, a toxin that works at range. A pause. Your assessment. I need information about the monsters inside, said Inu. Reconnaissance was 3 days ago. 1 large monster, presumably the primary one. Several smaller ones. Details are unclear. The scouts couldn't get in deep. Lee Ara, Inu addressed the analyst. She raised her eyes, not surprised that he was addressing her directly. A growing gate. What does that mean from the standpoint of the monster inside? Several versions, said Lee Ara clearly. First, the monster inside is exceptionally powerful on its own, and the gate grows under its influence. Second, the monster is actively absorbing the energy of the space and expanding the gate intentionally. A pause. If the second, the monster has intelligence above the standard for its rank, which version is more likely? I don't know, honestly. No data. Then we prepare for both. Namjoon watched this exchange. Didn't intervene. Departure tomorrow morning, he said. Preparation this evening. He looked at Inu. After the briefing, we talk separately. The separate conversation was in Namjoon's office, small, with the functional tidiness that spoke of a person who thinks about the work and not the interior. Sit, said Namjoon. He sat. First joint operation. I'm the commander. You're a special agent. In the field, my decisions are final. I understand, even if you disagree. In the field, yes. Inu spoke directly. After the operation, I'll voice my opinion. Namjoon watched him. Honest. I can't do it any other way. Good, said Namjoon. I need honesty more than agreement. A pause. Now, how do you see your role in this operation? Toxin at range, said Inu. Narrow corridors are good for me. Monsters can't get around the smell of blood in a confined space. Higher concentration, he thought. The problem. The growing gate. If the monster is influencing the gate intentionally, it's smarter than anything I've encountered. A smart monster will find a way to deal with the smell. How? I don't know. Haven't encountered this. That's exactly why Lee Ara's option 2 matters. Namjoon nodded. So inside, you'll be assessing behavior first of all, he said. Yes. Good. Namjoon opened a folder. One more thing, the shoulder. 3 weeks have passed. And the reflex is 80% rewritten, said Inu. Not 100, but enough for the operation. Namjoon was silent for a moment. I'll check myself, he said. Gym. 1 hour. All right. An hour of training with Namjoon. Not hard. Professional. Namjoon checked the movements, noted things, corrected where needed. Silent for most of it. At the end, he stopped. 80%. Accurate self-assessment, he said. Yes. For tomorrow's operation. Sufficient. A pause. Finish it after. I'll finish it after. Namjoon put away the equipment. Inu. Yes? Kim Ari wrote to me. Namjoon spoke without preamble. Personally, she wrote that you're her best non-standard experience in 20 years of hunting. Commander Kim exaggerates. I already said, she never exaggerates. Namjoon looked directly. That means I'm obligated to see you differently than I did at the first briefing. You already see me differently, said Inu. How do you know? Because an hour ago you weren't just testing me, you were preparing me. Inu spoke evenly. The difference is felt. Namjoon looked at him for a long time. Observant, he said. A miller learns to notice details, said Inu. Otherwise he won't understand what's broken. The city of Hanri, northern, industrial, with that gray look that belongs to places where factories work more than people live. The abandoned factory district, on the outskirts. The gate was visible from the street, a dark gap above an old building, larger than it should be for 3 days of existence. Growing. Local hunters. A CB rank unit, 5 of them standing at the perimeter. They met the arrivals with that combination of relief and professional pride that Inu had seen in other regions. Glad to have help, but not wanting to look helpless. Namjoon spoke with the local commander. Briefly, to the point. The gate has grown 12% in volume over the past day, said the local. Faster than expected. A pause. And there was a sound during the night. What kind of sound? From the gate. Low, rhythmic. Like... The local commander spoke slowly, searching for words, like something large is breathing. Namjoon looked at Inu. Inu looked at the gate. Lee Ara was right, he said quietly. Version 2. Version 2. Namjoon nodded. Turned to the group. So Hyon, Pak Ryu. Standard weapons plus extra armor. The space is tight. Speed matters above all. A pause. Inu. Knife, bandaging material. Nothing extra. Understood. We go in slowly. We assess. No initiative until we fully understand what's inside. Namjoon spoke clearly, without unnecessary words. If the situation goes out of control, signal and pull back. Closing the gate now is better than losing people. And if we don't close it now, in 5 days it's S rank, said So-Hyon. I know, that's why we're going in. But with our heads. Namjoon looked at each of them. Ready, ready. They went in. Inside, immediately different. Not the pressure of a normal A-rank gate. Something alive in the air, pulsing barely. But Inu felt it right away, as if the space itself had a rhythm. Slow, heavy, breathing. The corridors. The former factory had transformed inside the gate. The walls had kept the shape of industrial structures, but the material had changed. Dark, organic, as if the metal had been overgrown by something living. Narrow. 2 people side by side with difficulty. Inu walked first, by arrangement with Namjoon. The smell of blood as a vanguard. The small monsters sensed it immediately. 2 ran out of a side passage, small, fast. They saw Inu, stopped, turned around, disappeared into the darkness. They're afraid, Pak Ryu said quietly. Yes, Inu just as quietly. That's good. We don't know yet. They walked on. A minute. 2. The rhythm of the space grew stronger. The breathing became more palpable. The walls vibrated slightly. Living factory, said So-Hyon quietly. Not a joke, a statement. The monster is transforming the space around itself, replied Inu, incorporating the gate into itself. Or itself into the gate. Same thing. Namjoon was silent. Listening. Assessing. The central hall opened unexpectedly. The corridor ended and widened into a large space. A former factory floor. High ceiling. There was room to breathe here. And there, the monster. Not 4 meters. Larger, 6, maybe 7. Dark, almost merging with the walls. The shape complex, asymmetrical, with that organic unpredictability that lower ranks don't have. Many limbs. Inu tried to count, lost track. It wasn't sleeping, wasn't moving. It was standing, looking at them. The enormous head turned toward Inu slowly. It caught the smell. It didn't freeze from fear. It was interested. Bad, Namjoon said quietly. Yes, Inu just as quietly. Smart, very. The monster took a step. Not an attack, a step. Like a person who sees something interesting and walks over to get a closer look. Inu stood still. He cut his palm. Slowly, no sudden movements. The monster caught the fresh blood. Stopped, tilted its head. It was thinking. It's thinking, said Patryu, his voice even, professional, but with something in it that surfaces when a person encounters something beyond the edge of their experience. Yes, monsters don't think. This one does. The monster produced something. Not a roar. A series of sounds. Low, rhythmic. Almost like language. Silence in the floor. Lee Ara talked about intelligence above standard. Said, so Hyon. This isn't above standard, said Inu quietly. This is a different standard. Namjoon made the decision quickly. We pull back, he said quietly. Namjoon. We pull back. Firm, no raised voice. We don't know what we're dealing with. This isn't cowardice. It's tactics. Inu agreed, because Namjoon was right. They began pulling back slowly. The monster watched them, didn't pursue, waited. They entered the corridor, moved toward the exit. Inu walked last, looking back. The monster didn't follow them. It stood, watched. Leaving the gate, Inu looked back one last time. The monster was still standing in the center of the floor, and in its posture there was something Inu couldn't name right away. Then he named it. Patience. Outside, Namjoon sat down right on the ground at the perimeter. The others beside him. They were silent for a minute. Li Guang needs to know immediately, said Namjoon. Yes. Inu. Namjoon looked at him. Your toxin didn't stop it. The smell stopped the small ones. It had no effect on the main one like it did on the others. Why? I don't know exactly, Inu thought. Maybe the rank is too high. Maybe. A pause. Maybe it adapted. It's smart. It could have caught my scent and assessed the threat without fear. Meaning, your main weapon doesn't work against this one. For now, I don't know what works. Inu spoke evenly. We need to understand its nature. Li Ara needs this information. Namjoon dialed a number. Li Guang answered after 2 rings. Namjoon reported briefly. Size, behavior, intelligence, transformation of space, silence on the other end. Return to the city. I'm coming myself. With John Ho, S rank. Yes. Namjoon put away the phone. He looked at Inu. S rank is coming. I heard. What do you think? I think it's the right call, said Inu. And I think John Ho won't handle this alone. Why? Because this isn't about strength, said Inu. This is something different. A pause. The monster was waiting for us. It knew we'd come. A smart opponent prepares for strength. He looked at the gate. But nobody prepares for what they don't understand. Where are you going with this? To the point that we don't need more strength. We need to understand what it is. Inu stood up. And for that we need Li Ara here. In person. Namjoon looked at him. She's not a field person. She's the right person, said Inu. A pause. I'll call her, said Namjoon. Li Guang and Jian Ho arrived 6 hours later. With them, Li Ara, with equipment. Namjoon had called her 5 minutes after Li Guang. Li Ara's first look at the gate. She stood at the perimeter, looked at the dark expanding gap, measuring something with a portable device. Organic integration, she said quietly, more to herself than to the others. The monster is incorporating the gate into its own biology. This isn't the gate growing. This is the monster growing through the gate. Explain, said Jian Ho. First words since he'd arrived. Li Ara turned, saw the S rank, wasn't flustered. A gate is an energy rupture between spaces. Usually a monster uses them as a passage, enters through them, exits. She spoke clearly. This monster doesn't use the gate as a passage. It uses it as a power source. It absorbs the energy of the rupture and grows. A pause. The longer the gate exists, the larger it becomes. Close the gate, said John Ho. If we close the gate while it's inside, it loses its source. Growth stops. It may weaken. A pause. But. To close the gate, you need to go inside and destroy the core. The core is in the center, usually where the main monster is. Lee Ara looked at Jian Ho. Meaning, first deal with the monster, then close the gate. Standard order. Or, said Inu. Everyone looked at him. Or close the gate while it's occupied with something else. Inu spoke slowly, formulating as he went. It absorbs the energy of the rupture. If we create a second rupture, smaller, false, it will switch over. Get distracted. A second rupture, Lee Ara repeated. Impossible to create manually. Impossible to create. But possible to use, said Inu. There are small C-rank gates in the area. Any, open ones. If we redirect its attention to them, it won't go to small gates, said Namjoon. Not physically, but it'll sense them. Inu was thinking out loud. The energy of small gates is like the smell of food to it. If we create a flow of that energy toward it. How? Asked Lee Ara. Not skeptically, practically. I don't know, Inu said honestly. That's your domain. A pause. Lee Ara looked at the gate. Thinking. A resonance amplifier, she said at last. Theoretically, if you take the energy signal of a small gate and amplify it in a directed way, you can create the illusion of a larger source. A pause. I don't have that equipment here. I'll need 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days and the gate will grow another 20%, said So Hyon. I know. Lee Ara didn't look away from the gate. But if this works, we'll close it without direct combat with a monster that thinks. Jian Ho was silent, listening. Li Guang looked at Inu. Your idea, Inusi. Lee Ara will implement it if she considers it possible, said Inu. Possible, said Lee Ara. Risky, but possible. Then 2 days, said Li Guang. Lee Ara, for equipment. The rest hold the perimeter. He looked at Jian Ho. Your opinion? Jian Ho looked at Inu. Interesting person, he said. So I'm told, replied Inu. Jian Ho smirked. 2 days, he agreed. Let's see the theory in action. Day 1. Lee Ara left for equipment on the morning train. The others held the perimeter in shifts. Inu barely slept. He walked around the gate slowly, along the outer boundary, watching, listening to the rhythm coming from inside. The monster's breathing changed toward night. It became deeper, slower, as if it was sleeping or waiting. Jian Ho came over around midnight, stood beside him. Silent. You often stand like this, he said at last. When I don't understand something, I watch until I do, and it helps. Sometimes. Jian Ho looked at the gate. I've been hunting for 20 years, he said. I've seen a lot of strange things. A pause. I haven't seen this. A monster that thinks. A monster that waits, Jian Ho corrected. A difference. Thinking can mean many things. But waiting, that means it has a plan. Inu looked at the S rank beside him. You're afraid of it. I respect it, Jian Ho corrected. Fear and respect are different things. A pause. You're not afraid. I am, said Inu. But fear is information. It says to prepare more carefully. The philosophy of a miller. The philosophy of a person who had no choice for 2 years but to hold on. Jian Ho looked at him. Tell me about your wife, he said. Inu was surprised. He didn't show it. Why? I want to understand you. Not the agent. The person. Jian Ho spoke without pressure. You don't have to, Inu thought. She wanted someone else, he said at last. She married me because that other person had left. I always knew it. A pause. The poison was a way to leave without a conversation. She was afraid of a direct conversation. A coward. A frightened person, Inu corrected. A difference, he paused. I haven't forgiven her, but I don't hold it either. It's her story, not mine. And your story? What is it? This, said Inu simply. He nodded toward the gate. Silence. Good answer, said Jian Ho. They went their separate ways. Day 2. Lee Ara returned in the afternoon. With equipment, several crates, portable devices Inu had no names for. She worked quickly, focused. assembling something in field conditions right at the perimeter on a folding table. Inu helped when she asked, silently, without unnecessary questions. In the middle of the work, Liara stopped. Inu, see. Yes, your idea about resonance, she said, without looking up from the assembly. How did you come up with it? By analogy, said Inu. With what? With mice at the mill. A pause. A mouse goes toward the smell of food. Not toward the food itself, toward the smell. You can put a decoy in one place and the food in another. The mouse will go to the decoy. Liara stopped her hands, looked at him. You compared a creature with above-standard intelligence to a mouse. Basic instincts work in everyone, said Inu. However much reason there is on top, underneath there's always hunger. Liara looked at him for a moment. That's either brilliant or very overconfident, she said. We'll see which. She smiled slightly. The first time in 2 days. She went back to assembly. By evening, done. The device looked unremarkable. A small unit with an antenna. A few connecting cables. Liara explained the principle. Briefly. We take the energy signal of a small gate 2 kilometers from here, amplify it 20 times, direct it in a narrow beam toward our gate. A pause. For the monster inside, this will sound like a large source nearby. The instinct will say, switch over. And while it switches, said Jean-Ho, we go in, find the core, close the gate. How long will it hold its attention? I don't know, honestly. Minutes, maybe less. It's smart. It'll realize the signal is false. Fast then, said Namjoon. Very fast. Namjoon looked at the group. Jean-Ho goes for the core, so Hyeon and Pak Ryu cover. Inu with me at the entrance, we control the small ones. A pause. Liara holds the device outside. Understood. Inu, Namjoon looked at him. The main one doesn't react to your scent like the others. That means this time, you're not the strike instrument. I know. Support. Yes. A pause. But if the situation changes, I'll adapt. Namjoon nodded. We launch in 1 hour. He looked at everyone. Questions. There were no questions. An hour passed. Liara launched the device. A quiet sound, barely audible. Inu felt a change in the air. Not physical, something subtle. Like a shift in atmospheric pressure before a storm. The gate reacted. The pulse changed. The rhythm Inu had been listening to for 2 days broke, became uneven, then shifted, moved somewhere to the side. It's reacting, Liara said quietly. Seconds, said Namjoon. We go in, they went in. The corridors, the same, but quieter. The ordinary background sound of the gate that Inu hadn't noticed while it was there was gone. Empty. The monster had switched its attention. 2 small ones appeared. Inu moved forward. They sensed him, turned around, disappeared. Quickly. Clear, Namjoon. They moved fast, toward the central floor. Jean-Ho walked first among the main group, not because he was the strongest, because he was the fastest at this level. S rank is a different speed, the floor. The monster stood at the far wall, its head turned to the side, toward where the false signal was going. The enormous body tense. Attention, not here. The core. Liara had explained beforehand. In the center of the floor, a dark pulsing node on the ground. Organic, alive, part of the gate structure that the monster had incorporated into itself. Jean-Ho saw it. Moved. Fast. Very fast. S-rank in motion is something else. Inu was seeing it for the first time. The monster sensed the movement, started to turn. Jean-Ho reached the core. 1 strike. Precise. With that particular quality of attack that belongs to S-rank. The core cracked. The monster roared. Not that quiet rumble. A real roar. The floor vibrated. So Hyeon and Pak Ryu stood between the monster and Jean-Ho. Cover. The monster attacked. Fast, with a fury that hadn't been there on the first visit. The calm was gone, pain and rage remained, so Hyeon took the blow on his shield, flew back against the wall, got up, alive. Pak Ryu stepped aside, counterattacked. No effect, but the monster switched to him. John Ho struck the core again. Second blow. Third. The core was breaking apart. The pulse of the gate weakened. The monster felt it. Turned toward the core, toward John Ho. Inu moved. Not toward the head. Toward the side, where he had seen soft tissue between the limbs the last time. A long path around. Fast, the monster didn't notice. It saw John Ho. Inu dove under a limb. Left palm, open wound, fresh blood. He struck the soft tissue. The monster flinched. Didn't fall, not the same effect as on others. But it slowed for a second. Exactly 1 second. John Ho used that second. Fourth strike on the core. The final one. With that concentration of force that Inu felt physically as pressure in the air, the core shattered. The gate began to collapse. "We leave, Namjoon." No shouting, clear. The monster was falling, not from the toxin. The gate was collapsing. The power source was disappearing. The body that had grown on the energy of the rupture was losing its foundation. They ran toward the exit. The corridors were shrinking. Literally, the walls were moving. The gate was closing fast. Inu ran last. He jumped out a second before the gate collapsed completely. Silence. They stood at the perimeter. Breathing. The place where the gate had been. Empty. Just an old factory building. The dark air of the evening sky. No pulse. No breathing. "We closed it," said So Hyun. "We closed it." John Ho looked at the place where the gate had been, then at Inu. "The second you gave me," he said. "Yes. Without it, I wouldn't have made it." "You would have," said Inu. "No." John Ho spoke without false modesty in reverse. "I wouldn't have." A pause. "Thank you." Inu nodded. Liara walked over with the device in her hands, looking at the closed gate. "It worked," she said quietly, as if she hadn't fully believed it until now. "It worked," Inu agreed. She looked at him. "The mouse and the decoy." "The mouse and the decoy," Liara smiled. "For real, not just slightly." Inu too. Namjoon stood nearby, silent. Then he put his hand on Inu's shoulder, briefly, without words. He removed his hand. He walked off to call Li Guang. "Enough."